Welcome everyone to Changing Up the Hip Hop Guards. It is me, Uncle E. That's my partner, the journalist Sincere. Everybody tuned in. Make sure to take a second and hit that subscribe button, the like button. Make sure you share this podcast with everybody you know. And joining us today, we have none other than DJ Johnny Juice, B-boy, DJ, producer. Man, you name it, this gentleman wears it all. Master of many trades. Scores movies, films, all kind of stuff. If you're not familiar, you'll get familiar tonight. But welcome. Thank you for joining us, man, and taking the time. Appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Johnny, a lot of your history is documented, and, of course, people can search the internet and find a lot of interviews with you. So we kind of want to go back a little bit before we get to what you're doing these days, and just get to know a little bit of what makes Johnny tick. What are some of the things that kind of came all together to create the person that you are today? So if you could go back a little bit, I know you were born in the Bronx and you moved to Long Island at one point, but just give us a little time period of that transition and how things were in the Bronx compared to when you moved to Long Island.
All right. Well, my family is with Puerto Rican descent. Obviously, my mom and pops were Puerto Rican. We lived in the Bronx. They lived in the Bronx since the 50s. My mom was born in Puerto Rico. She was born in Guayama. My father's from the island of Vieques. They moved. My grandfather moved up to New York during the time of Operation Bootstrap. It's right after the war. He was in World War II. So we came to New York. Lived in Patterson Projects, as KRS-One would say, Patterson and Millwood Projects. So came from Patterson Projects on the 44th and Morris Avenue. Built at 414, 4th floor. That's how we rock it, 4th floor. Right underneath my grandmother's apartment was Tiny Archibald for the Boston Celtics.
Oh, okay.
So Nate Archibald grew up with my mom, my uncles, and all that stuff.
Nice.
I was born actually in Manhattan. Now. And Patterson Projects, right across the street is Lincoln Hospital. Lincoln Hospital wasn't there when I was born. So I think it was made in 1975 or something like that. It wasn't even made when I was there. So my mom jumped in a cab, dipped down to Manhattan, and had me at Mount Sinai. But I was raised in the Bronx. I lived in Patterson Projects. Then we moved to Michelangelo. Michelangelo's not the projects, but they're apartments, which are right on the other side of the current Lincoln Hospital on 149th and Morris.
Okay.
My neighbor was Joe Conzo.
Oh, okay.
So Joe Conzo, born in the Bronx.
Gotcha.
Joey and his family lived in a duplex. I lived on the same floor, a few apartments down, brand new apartments. So there was not a lot of people populating the building at the time. So there was a lot of empty apartments. So one of my best friends, Boo Boo, and George, we had a best friend named Jared. That was Joey's little brother. So I was in and out of Joey's house when he was taking all those pictures.
Really?
Right. So growing up in the Bronx, I watched my uncles who were part of the fading gang culture. That the Diplomats and of course the Black Spades and all of those kind of gangs were running around. My uncles were in gangs here and there. They ended up going to Vietnam, so they got out of that. Well, my oldest uncle went to Vietnam, got out of that.
Okay.
He came back and taught me martial arts from about the age of 3. And that's been my longest consistently running activity, actually, more so than even, music.
Gotcha.
Growing up, it was intertwined. So I was doing gymnastics, flipping around, doing my martial arts. And then I would see these cats, these new dudes doing, something that would now be called breakdancing. Ironically, my uncles were doing rocking. They were part of the rocking culture. So like the Dynasty Rockers, like my boy King Up Rock would do, or some of the rocking crews where it looks like basically like an elaborate top rock.
Right.
So they were doing that before it wasn't called rocking culture at the time. They didn't say they were rocking, but it wasn't called the rock dance. I actually started emulating that because when you were a kid, you watch what you're doing around. I had an aunt that was 10 years older than me, so she would have friends, and and about that time in the early 70s, it started transitioning to disco and the hustle. My aunts were all hustle dancers. My mom was a phenomenal hustle dancer. So they would do the hustle. They would come over to my mom's crib and there'll be hustle parties and hustling and doing whatever, do a little bit of salsa. My mom was a ridiculous dancer, so she taught me to dance when I was a little kid. And I would be her little toy. She'd bring me out and look at my son, he could dance, and bring my sister out. And you know, nobody wants to dance with their sister. They definitely don't want to do it in front of people they don't know. So that was a little thing, you know, let me show you how, you know, John and Jeanette could dance. And that was my dance start. My grandfather and his brother played in salsa bands in Puerto Rico. So my grandfather had a pair of homemade bongos he had that he made. And he had all these like percussion instruments. So, you know, if you know any Puerto Ricans, you know, when we party, pass around the instruments and everybody just bangs on something. For some reason, I took to the bongo instead of just the other instruments. Eventually, my grandfather passed away. He gave me his bongos on his deathbed.
Wow.
That same year, I ended up making my first record.
Your first record?
First record. But that's fast forward a little bit. But eventually, we moved out of the Bronx. We moved to Long Island. We won a lawsuit. Got a little bit of money. My pops was like, let's try to move out to LI. We had some family friends that lived in the Bronx that they moved to Long Island, you know, and the matriarch of that family was a real estate agent. So she talked us into Long Island, right? So we moved to Long Island, lived not far from them. We ended up being real cool. I'm like, wow, we in Long Island, we got a house now, you know, things like that. A couple of years later, my pops committed suicide in the house.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so yeah, we stood in the house, even though I really didn't want to be there anymore. I wasn't cool with Long Island, but we made the best out of it. A little bit aside, a little aside to that, my mom ended up marrying the son of that lady that talked us into moving to Long Island.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so they've been together this whole time. They're together to this day. And they were friends when they were kids, so they're not unfamiliar. His grandmother was my godmother, so it's all about family. You see what I'm saying? And that's the point we're trying to make. And you're going to see that, you know, going through the rest of this real quick. Moved to Long Island, and I had a serious culture shock. You know, there was no.
Was that Uniondale? Was that Uniondale?
Uniondale. Moved to Uniondale, which is not far from Hempstead, where Method Man is from, and Prodigy from Mobb Deep, and the Product G and B's from Hempstead. So moved right near the Nassau Coliseum. We moved right when the Islanders won one of their Stanley Cups. By the way, I never knew anything about hockey, and so I'm like, why are they blocking off Hempstead Turnpike? What is this? And it was like, you know, they won the Stanley Cup. I'm like, who's Stanley and why he got a cup? You know, so I had no idea. I didn't know anything about that. So culture shock. There was nobody on corners. There was no bodegas, much less people at the bodegas. You know, there was a 7-Eleven, which we didn't have in the city at the time. I'm like, what's a 7-Eleven? You know, so all of this was new. I realized people weren't on the corners because they were in their houses. They were in their backyards, you know, in their basements. I'm like, oh, we didn't have that. That's why we was hanging out on the corners or hanging out, whatever. Quickly met some other Puerto Ricans, you know, because there weren't that many of us at the time. So, you know, as soon as we got out there, you know, my friend, she passed away. Her name is India, and her little squad of Puerto Rican, you know, organizations. She ran the Uniondale Hispanic Association, the Kiwanis, you name it. Her and her husband ran everything. So we quickly became friends with, you know, all the people out there. I started developing a little posse, and I was breaking at the time. So these cats would come to my crib, we go in my garage, and we break. Fast forward a little bit further, I started making a serious name in Long Island for myself as a b-boy. I was already more advanced than the cats in Long Island. So, but then I would go to the Bronx on the weekends, and I would come home and just, you know, with more moves and different things. And eventually, I met this young kid named Trevor Smith and his brother Paul at a roller skating rink in Levittown Rollerway.
Okay.
They wanted to be part of my crew. They just freshly moved to Long Island from Brooklyn, and they were elementary schools. They were younger than me. And later on, that kid Trevor Smith will become Busta Rhymes.
Right. So you met, I don't mean to cut you. You met him first before Charlie Brown? Okay, okay. So, because I want to ask you,
or
go ahead.
simultaneously. It's
Okay.
weird because I was going to school with Charlie Brown, but he wasn't Charlie Brown yet.
Right,
He
right,
wasn't even rhyming yet. We were all breaking. I mean, I was DJing at the time, but I was known as a breaker.
right.
I mean, like when I would ask to let people let me on the DJ set, and they were like, "Come on, stick to breakdancing, kid." You know, they wouldn't even let me on. I'm like, "Come on, man, I'm nice." They're like, "Yeah, whatever, man." You know, they were trying to keep me off there. Like, go sweep the floor with your back or whatever you do. Yeah, they were clowning me, man. It was bad.
Right,
So, about that time, you know, I knew Brown. Brown was part of the enemy breakdance crew. I don't remember the name of the crew. They had this dude that was a Michael Jackson impersonator named Fame Jackson.
Okay.
Fame was a martial artist, and Fame was dope. Like he could pop and all that. So he was a Michael Jackson impersonator, but he was dope at dancing. So we'd always have our showdowns. My crew was mainly Latino. Their crew was mainly black. Except my crew had Busta Rhymes in it. I called him Kid Craze because he just wouldn't stop, you know. So Kid Craze, like, yo, calm down, man. So, you know, Kid Craze and Brown was in his own crew. He was called Mr. Pop. That was his name.
Mr. Pop.
Right. So me trying to get my name on as a DJ, I had a local dude named DJ Will who was really dope. And I would go to his crib, and every time he would go smoke weed, he'd let me get on the turntables. So you know what I brought to his crib. You know, I don't smoke. I didn't smoke. But I'm like, here, have at it. Let me get on the turntable. So I got nicer and nicer till eventually I'm like, I want to know who the dopest cat around here is so I can battle him, so I can put on. Told me this guy named DJ Hig. Hig did all the clubs in Long Island. And he was highly responsible for bringing hip hop to Long Island because at the time, a lot of the clubs were run by mob kind of dudes. And they didn't really want hip hop or black people in their clubs. So he would slowly introduce hip hop in all his sets and all the clubs he run. So he was doing this club called Roxy's in East Meadow, which was right next to Uniondale. So I went. My goal was to battle him and show everybody that he ain't the best, it's me, and let me DJ instead of just telling me to stick to breakdancing. So I went out to Roxy's.
Is that Brown's own brother?
That's Brown's brother.
That's Brown's brother. I heard a brother that was like I didn't know who exactly he was.
He's nice. So yeah, so I went to the club and they wouldn't let me in because I had no money. But as luck would have it, it was a breakdance battle. And if you entered the breakdance battle, you get in for free. So I didn't have a crew, it was just me. I entered and I won. I beat every crew by myself. And Higgle will vouch for it. I beat all the crews by myself. And then when they gave me some little trophy or something. I didn't care. So I'm like, I saw Hig at the bar, big dude. I'm like, yo, man, you Hig? And he goes, yeah. I said, yo, I want to battle you. And he goes, I don't break dance. I'm like, I'm not talking about break dancing. I want to battle you on the turntables. He started laughing. He goes, yeah, whatever, kid. I said, no. I said, yo, are you scared? Is that why you scared? And he had 2 girls with him and stuff. So I look scared. He goes, tell you what, if you battle my boy DJ Andy, and you beat him, we'll talk. So DJ Andy looked like John Ritter, like Jack Tripper from Thieves Company. He looked just like that, except he had a shirt that said DJ Andy on it. I'm like, really? So he brought out that record out near Fish the Soul. It's time.
Okay.
I destroyed him. And that's when he said, yo, come to this address next weekend. You got to scratch on my mixtape. I showed up at his crib, and that's when I saw Charlie Brown. His name was KBMC now. He was a rapper now. Okay. Crush BMC, because his name is Brian. And I said, yo, I know that dude. He goes to school with me. What's he doing here? And he goes, that's my brother. I'm like, oh, really? I hate that dude. You know, at the time, you know, because we were enemies in the breakdance thing. He's like, well, yeah, well, he rhymes. Because you guys should form like a little crew. And to be honest with you, even though me and Busta had a B-boy crew, I started with Brown first as an MC and me DJ.
Okay.
And eventually, we brought Busta in as a beatbox. And then eventually, he started rhyming. And his rap name was MC Chillowski.
Chillowski. I just saw an interview he did recently where he said that.
Right. So that's how it started. I mean, all my friends like Miguel and Gil, the breakdancers, I mean, we rhymed and did a little thing. We were called the Bum Rush Crew, but they were kind of really doing it for women. And, you know, they got all the women they needed. So it was like, we don't really need to continue doing it like that. Me, I was serious about it. Brown was serious about it. Chilowski was serious about it.
Mm.
We continued doing things. We even did a show opening for Alicia. She sang Two Turned On. It was she was like a freestyle chick.
Okay.
So she was on Vanguard Records, and we did this jam in New Jersey, Middletown, New Jersey, opening for her. Hig was the headline DJ that night, and we went all the way out there and opened for Busted Income because we had another dude with us, but we called ourselves the Bum Rush 2. It was supposed to be me and Brown. We added my man. We got down, we ripped it, and eventually we made a name for ourselves as a little rap crew.
Did you guys eventually did anything materialize from the Bum Rush crew?
Nah, not really. What happened was I was hanging around the Choice 5 MCs. 3 of them would go on to become Seriously Fine. One of them would become Woody Rock. You know, he was Woody D, but he became Woody Rock. He was part of Uptown. He was on Uptown's Kicking It. Woody Rock says, "Please, Marley Marl, please spin." So I was actually DJing for Woody for a minute. I did a song with him called Jampire and some other stuff. And there was a lot of things happening at the time. And of course, there was these guys doing parties called Spectrum City. They also had a radio show in Adelphi. So just so happens, luck has it that I was in the Bronx visiting my grandmother. I was in Patterson Projects, and I came back home to an answer machine full of voice messages saying, "Yo, there's a contest and we're missing it. Yo, where you at?" And it was Brown. So I'm like, all right. So I called him. I'm like, "Yo, what's up?" He's like, "Yo, man, you're killing me. And we got this battle happening up in Hempstead at 510. They're looking for rappers and DJs to sign. And you know, we got to get there. Matter of fact, we might even be too late." I'm like, "Well, I'm home." He's like, "All right, cool." So his mom came and picked us up because we had no cars at the time. His mom picked us up. Peace out to Mrs. Higgins. She scooped us up, and we went by Buster's crib, but he was in Brooklyn visiting his father. It's a weekend. So no dice. So we picked up our brother Daquan, who runs a youth center in Unionville now. And we drove out to 510, and there was a line around the block. And all these cats were, and we were the youngest dudes there, and they were trying to get put on. And it was run by Hank Boxley and MC Chuck E.D. from Spectrum City. So upstairs, we went in the Gant building. Downstairs, by the way, there was a dental office. Dr. Gant owned the building. Downstairs was Cassad Studios. It's a rehearsal studio run by Eric Sadler and Charles Cassius, who would later go on, Eric would later go on to be one of the Bomb Squad.
Right.
And so upstairs, we went up there, get into this little office. On one side of the room was a whole bunch of records, and it was the property of EJ the DJ. He was a party DJ, he had his stuff. And then the other side was Spectrum City. I go in a little room, they put a cassette in, they asked me my name, my address, all that stuff. Then they asked me, what's my DJ name? And they said, we're going to give you 2 copies of a record. You're going to scratch them for like a minute and a half. 2 records were Funky President by James Brown. The turntables are SL 1300 MK2s with the wooden bass and a Mixman or a Clubman mix. I can't remember. So I get on there. I start rocking it. I had to use a milk crate because it was so high. So I got on the milk crate. The DJ, I started scratching. I even scratched behind my back, the whole thing. And then Brown, they rhymed to some drum machine beats. You pick the beat. And then afterwards, we went across the street, got some French fries from the Chinese restaurant and some quarter waters from the Hollywood grocery. I waited for Brown's mom to pick us up. And I remember Brown asking me, "Yo, how you think you did?" I'm like, "Yo, I killed that, man." And he's like, I don't think we made it. I'm like, "Yo, I don't know what's going on after me." But so didn't hear nothing for a few days. I got my first actual real job at Burger King that weekend. Friday, I got the job. Saturday, I went and I actually trained for the day. I got home Saturday night. There was a voice message. "Yo, this is Chuck E.D. Juice, you won the DJ battle. Come to the studio Monday." Sunday, I went back to work and I quit. So I worked the whole one day. And I went to the studio, and that's when I found out that Chuck created a group with Hank called the Kings of Pressure. And I was the DJ, if I wanted to. So that was my start, getting down with, what would later become Public Enemy and the Bomb Squad.
Right. Who when there was King of Pressure, though, who exactly was who was like the MCs and exactly?
All right, they picked 4 MCs. And that's what this contest was for.
Right.
The MCs was Double D, his younger brother Cracker J, Boogie Breeze. Those three were from Hempstead. Myself from Uniondale, and an MC from Freeport named King 8, Adrian White. So I was the youngest of all of them. Adrian was just a little older than me, and the other guy, well, actually, Cracker J and me were the same age. We were still in high school. Adrian was a couple of years older, maybe, and Breeze and Double were older. And we had meetings every Monday night at 8. They were like, this is what we're going to do. They already had a logo design. Chuck was a graphic artist. He got a graphic design degree from Adelphi. He created the logo along with other logos. So as I'm looking at our logo, I see there's a logo for a group called Leaders of the New School. I see a logo for a group called Terminal Illness Crew, Son of Berserk and the Hell Raiders. There was a whole bunch of logos, and they had ideas for who they wanted to make these groups. So they would have contests, and that was the first one they had. And the contest would determine, we're going to put these guys here. Because their whole goal was actually to be a management company, create groups, get them signed, and manage them.
Right.
And then play them on their radio show. That Public Enemy was only supposed to be a 2-year project. Come in for 2 years, get our foot in the door, and then bring all these other groups in.
Okay.
And quit. That was the process. And since I didn't have a car, Chuck would pick me up on his way to Hempstead from Roosevelt. He'd dip down to Uniondale, hit me up, and then drop me off. So one day we headed back home. He's dropping me off, and he goes, we working on an album. You think you want to do some scratching on it? I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, yeah, bet, let's go. So he puts in a cassette, and he goes, tell me what you think. And that was the first time I heard the beat from My Uzi Weighs a Ton. So I'm like,
go ahead.
I was just like, I'm there. Just tell me where I gotta be, and
How did the deal with Next Plateau come about?
That was already. Here's the irony. That was pretty much in the works when they formed our group. Hank. That was his. To me, that was his strong point. I mean, he's supposed to be a producer and all that. That's cool. I never physically saw him write a beat ever. But his strong suit was to make you believe in a project, and he had great ideas. As far as fleshing them out and doing them, that was the job of other people, as far as I was concerned. But he got a deal with Eddie O'Loughlin. So we did a demo called Armed and Dangerous. It ended up being on Red Alert Girls Berserk first album. That's a 4-track demo. That's not even a fully done song. We did that with a little cheap Radio Shack mic and a 4-track cassette deck in 510. I think we ended up going to a real studio and recording it, but they didn't even use that. I'm like, why would you give them a 4-track, Dukes? We did a whole version of this, which, by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I just remade the song with the original members the way it was supposed to be. And when you hear that, it's night and day. But so we did that. We got a deal. And then we did You Know How to Reach Us with the beeper. That was Chuck's idea. Chuck actually, he used to be a delivery messenger for an art company. The company did like artwork or design. I think there might have been an architectural place, but he would go and deliver these drawings and plans, and he had a beeper. So he did the beep, beep. So he sampled it and beep, 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 made it the hi-hat. Actually played that hi-hat the whole way through manually. It was a program. So we did the song, and it started getting love. It started blowing up. And that was my foray into making records, with and then of course that one weekend where Chuck said, I'm gonna pick you up, grab a crate of records, and we did all of Yo Bummers the show, at least all the scratching and all that stuff in one session.
Was Terminator X in the picture at the time?
Yeah, he was Mellow D. So if you listen to Public Enemy #1, he goes Chucky D, myself, and KG, Flavor, DJ Mellow D. Terminator was Mellow D. KG was Keith Shockley, Hank's brother. So when it was Spectrum, it was Wizard KG, Mellow D, MC DJ Flavor, MC Chucky D. And then they had Butch Cassidy. Butch Cassidy, he's not rhyming anymore. Now he's a grandmaster in his own martial art that he invented.
Wow.
So, and we actually trained together, at one point.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So at what point, because you said like originally what they wanted to do was become like a management group. So they didn't really, like even Chuck didn't really have that desire yet to be an MC.
I
So-
mean, he did when he did Public Enemy #1. That was in '83. This is well before a record deal. They would make their own records and they would throw them up on the radio
on the
their
radio
radio show.
station. Right,
So it's
right.
like, I think it was a lack of content. See now, I mean, now you can download records. That doesn't count. But for a while in the late '80s, even though Chuck was doing it since the late '70s, early '80s, but about the mid to late '80s, college radio started getting serviced by labels. So we would get sent vinyl. But for a while, they wouldn't send us anything. So if you didn't get anything, what you gonna play?
Right,
You had
right.
to find local people. You know what I'm saying? Or in Chuck's case, make your own records.
Mm.
Wow.
But Spectrum City did release a record. It was called Lies, and on the other side was Gotta Check Out the Radio. So they did that. That breakbeat. Gotta check out the Avenue. Got to check out. So they just did that, and they did Gotta Check Out the Radio. Chuck's idea was to blow up the radio show. And the radio show at Adelphi University, BAU, was thick. Mr. Bill Most Chill Show. Bill went on to become vice president of Def Jam, and he produced Your Bummer's Show. And he produced the Juice soundtrack. And, Bill became a bigwig in the music business. Dr. Dre, he had the operating room. He went on to be the host of MTV Raps. He had to go with the original concept.
I was just going to ask you if you came across them out here in Long Island at that time.
They were all based out of BAU.
Mm-hmm.
Even Baba Booey from Howard Stern was at BAU.
Mm-hmm.
Wild Man Steve. I ended up going to Hofstra, hooking up with Jeff Force and doing radio there. So BAU was thick. I was at Hofstra, like college radio was
College
thick.
radio, yeah.
BAU was on Monday nights. I was on Saturday nights, but I came on right after Marley Marl and Red Alert. Mm-hmm. So Red Alert and Chuck Chillout was doing Kiss FM Friday and Saturday nights from 9 to 12. Marley Marl and Mr. Magic were doing 9 to 12 on Friday and Saturday nights on BLS. And I came on 10 to 2, but from 10 to 12, we were rocking like weird, I don't know, overseas import music, like Walk the Dinosaur by Was Not Was and stuff like that. But from 12 to 2, it was hip hop. And that was me. And I was killing it. So, as soon as you finish listening to Marley Marl or listening to Red or Chuck and was like, I need more hip hop, go right down the dial from 98.7 Kiss to 88.7 and you listen to the house on Saturday night.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So we were killing it, man, like for a minute. And then I had Brown, Dinko, and Buster answering phones.
Before you keep going, okay, so I want to ask you this. Around I don't remember the time frame exactly, but there was a point where Brown in particular, it seemed like he was on every time you turn the radio station on, especially like the college, he was there.
Yeah.
Was that what was going on around that time? How was it that he was just all over?
Well, me and Brown were best friends and we were always rolling. So we was at radio station after radio station. He did my show. I had a boy, my homeboy, Father True. He was like, he used to babysit Buster, actually, I think, something like that. He's the one that kind of told me, you should take this record up to Hofstra, and talk to them about playing it. So that's when I did that. That's when I got down with him. And he was an ex-Navy guy. Jeff Force, rest in peace. He died a few years back, right about this time, actually. He ran the radio show, the Post-Punk Progressive Pop Party. We shortened it to P5 because I don't know what that was all about. And his DJ partner, Marty Venker, who was like some kind of rave DJ, Marty used to be a Secret Service agent.
Wow.
There's actually a book about his life called Confessions of a Secret Service Agent. I'm like, what? I didn't even know that. His wife had purple hair and he had a mohawk. I'm like, does this dude used to be a Secret Service agent? He's like, yeah, man. I'm like, damn.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's just like the rabbit hole goes deep, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we rocking out. Father Troop used to be in the Navy. So he found a way to rig mad phones in the other room to answer them, right? So he did that. He was answering them. Dinko, Brown, and Buster were answering phone calls. I was on the turntables. It was like a big party, literally. So we started doing I started getting booked to DJ, whatever, whatever events happening, and a special guest would be me for an hour or something. And we bring the whole squad, you know what I'm saying? And we record it, we play it at the next, if we could, we play at the next, radio, night we had. And Brown was everywhere at the time. Brown was making appearances. Buster, so, and then by this time they were slid in also at 510. So now they were working on becoming another group, but they were given different names. They were given Son of Berserk, and they didn't want that. They had to battle the kids that are now young black teenagers for the name of Leaders of the New School. They were told to write a song called, F the Old School, and whoever did the best song got the name, and they won.
So what was the reaction to the young black teenagers getting that name, being a white group?
I mean, you already know what the reaction to that was, but the name was already there, so it wasn't like they were given that name to whatever. But it was like, yo, you know what? The name existed. Let's, Hank's idea was, yo, there. I don't know if there was an appropriation thing, but it was more like, maybe this will shock the world. It'll make them say, oh man, I don't know what his idea was, but he thought it was a good idea. In retrospect, it was not such a great idea, but and they weren't a bad group. It's just when you put together the name and the look, and it became sometimes ideas don't always flesh out the way you thought it would.
Right.
That's really, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say it's really interesting though that you mentioned how they had all of these names and everything before they had the groups, because it kind of puts a little bit of perspective as far as like why maybe even some groups didn't last that long. Because if you know what I'm saying, it's a little different if hey, us three right here, we know each other, let's put this group together, we come up with the name together, as opposed to someone kind of just, you know what I'm saying?
Here's the deal. Just so you know, when they did the Kings of Prussia, and this is what Chuck told me. He said the reasoning behind that was because they've dealt with a whole bunch of cats that came in as a crew already. And they have all these internal dramas that kind of destroy the group. They figure if we put together dudes that don't even know each other, they'll keep it 100 in business.
Okay.
But it ends up that they have other different beefs. It wouldn't be the same ones as if you were a crew already, but it'd still be other beefs. So that's one. Two, some of the groups were pre-existing. Son of Berserk was called the Townhouse 3. Mm-hmm. They didn't have Half Pint in the crew. It was just Jawel, rest in peace, who passed away a year ago to yesterday. Mm-hmm. TA the DJ, who was now called Berserk, and then Daddy Raw, which is Pep the Entertainer. Mm-hmm. So they were already a crew. They were a crew before Chuck and them. Mm-hmm. Chuck actually credits TA's voice as being one of his influences. Mm-hmm. So when he had a chance, he took them and he brought them in, and they ended up becoming Son of Berserk featuring No Self Control. So they were already a pre-made group.
Okay.
So it wasn't all like that, but
right.
And then there was a lot of people floating around 510. 510 was like a D&D, but for Long Island.
Long Island.
Kind of like, it was one of those things. It was like a digging in the crates thing. But before all of these crews, we were that for Long Island.
Gotcha.
Can you take us back to what those studio sessions were like for Yo Bum Rush the Show?
It was one long studio session. We was in INS Recording in Manhattan, which is no longer there. And to keep the budget low, we did all the pre-production at 510. We got there, everything was dumped, and it was like, record everyone. When it was time to do scratching, there was one turntable and a mixer, and Terminator was like, get down, you do whatever. And he was given, a certain amount of time to do it because we was on a time constraint. After a few times, if it wasn't like kind of what Hank and Chuck were looking for, they were like, Juice, can you get on there and do that? So a lot of the songs have me and him on. But I was more of a technical DJ than he was. So, I mean, we both did parties, so there was this big misconception. But Juice was a scratch DJ, Norman was a party DJ or whatever. No, we were both party DJs. At the time, we did parties. I did parties all over Long Island, and they were known for being banging parties, but I also scratched. So I would get on after Norman would do his 3 tries or whatever. After whatever tries, like, just it's not working the way we wanted. Juice, try do something different. And I would do something different and be like, usually after that one take, it was like, great. And most of the time it was because I realized that by listening to what Norman was doing, they don't want that. They don't want this. Now I'm kind of figuring out, what I think I know what they want. They want to fill this space. So they want this. They don't want to be too much of this, but they don't want it to be just jiggy. I was able to narrow it down pretty quickly. we knocked out that scratch relatively quickly. And it should be noted in the other room in INS, Duke Booty was in there working. I
Ooh.
think he might have been working on Word of Mouth with DJ Cheese, King Cut. He might have been working on that. I don't know what he was working on, but he was working on one of those projects while we were working on Bum Rush the Show.
Oh, shit. Nice. Nice. Wow. That's crazy. So what time did you get a chance to, like,
Yeah,
collaborate with him? Yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, I never met him before, and I talked to him in the lounge a few times, and then of course I realized he was the guy that wrote the message.
The message. Yeah.
But yeah, we talked for a minute. I mean, he wasn't a really talkative dude like that, at least
Okay.
not to me. But I got to speak to him a few times, and rest in peace to Booty.
Right.
And in between the scratching parts and the other parts being laid down, I would go into a B room with Eric Sadler, and he would show me how to work the SP 1200, or show me how to work this keyboard, and that's how I learned how to do production.
Gotcha.
So was the plan for Public Enemy to have 2 DJs, or were you no?
Public Enemy on paper was only Chuck and Flavor. Those are the only 2 people signed to Def Jam. And they didn't want to sign Flavor. But Chuck wouldn't sign a deal unless Flavor signed. They thought Flavor's a hype man. Fine, bring him on the shows. But why is he signed to a record deal?
Right.
But Chuck wouldn't do it without him. They wanted it to be Chucky D. And there was already a Kumo D and a Steady B. And he was like, nah.
Mhm.
So they created Public Enemy. But then that's when it started fleshing out. When they did their jams at Spectrum City, because they would rent the hall and do a jam, they had security. The security was called, at the time, Unity Force Security, and it was run by Richard Griffin. So he took Richard Griffin, made a Professor Griff, and they became the security of the First War.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
What did you witness as far as the transition from album number 1 to album number 2?
Well, the album was done, but it was on hold because the Beastie Boys just came out.
Mhm.
And Def Jam wasn't a huge label, wasn't like they had resources to push like 2 big albums at a time. So we got held up. So we started working immediately on the second album. And by this time, production ideas changed, things changed. We were getting better at using the equipment, blah, 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 blah. So things were a lot different. You see what I'm saying? That's why the B-side of You're Gonna Get Yours and My Uzi Weighs a Ton, which was on the first album, has Rebel Without a Pause from the second album, because we were already deep in the second album by the time the first album was released.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's dope.
To clear up the record, what scratches did you do on the second album?
If I go through them, I have to listen to them. But my scratches are more technical, so you can figure that out. In some cases, like I think Norman did all of things like I'm trying to think. I think he did all of Don't Believe the Hype. He did what was that? Court Can I Get a Witness? By that time he started getting Transformers a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And again, I remember the first song I did on that record was Night of Living Bass Heads. Because, and this gives you an idea of how this is done. They wanted the DJ to sound like, because it's a crackhead record, right? So they wanted it to sound like the DJ bought a mixer from a crackhead and the mixer was messed up.
Okay.
So how do you make it sound messed up? See, so this is what I mean by concept. So it's like, that's why if you hear there's a lot of back cueing. I made it sound like, I moved the fader over, but it bled and you can still hear the back. I'm like, the mixer's whack. You know what I'm saying? So I had to create the illusion of a mixer that was malfunctioning.
Right.
So this gives you an idea as to the mindset of what we were looking for. So it wasn't just, rock some scratches.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, sometimes the ideas for scratches were already there before any of us touched it. On the third album, on Welcome to the Terror Dome, Chuck D did those scratches.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's whoever's there. Matter of fact, Chuck tried to do some scratches from bass heads, but they weren't on beat or anything like that. So it was like, we got to kind of redo it. So we took them off, and he's like, Juice, what do you think? But I think the approach for the Bomb Squad was more of a, let's see if we could get what's in our head on to tape. And if it was done, it didn't matter who did it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It was less about who did it. Like I was just listening to an interview by Bernard Purdy, the drummer.
hmm
He played on 17 freaking records of the Beatles. Ringo played on nothing.
yeah, that's crazy.
There's four
That's
drummers that played on those albums, and Ringo played on nothing. You see what I'm saying?
So it's so what I'm
So,
kind of
so the Bomb Squad took that approach. It
Okay.
wasn't really about, get this group, whatever. We need to make a record, and it got to be dope.
just got to make it happen, right? So I guess as us as fans and consumers, we're so used to seeing, you have a DJ, this person does production, these are the MCs, and people I think just automatically are trying to figure that out with Public Enemy. Like you got Chuck, Flavor's the hype man, Terminator X is the DJ, and then you got,
Okay, like I said, Keith done some scratches.
yeah.
Chuck did scratches.
Public Enemy was just one big production in-house.
Right.
Like
it was
Motown,
in-house.
like
It was
Motown.
in-house. We modeled ourselves after the classic production house models like Motown. Yeah, like like that kind of thing, where multiple people threw their hats in the ring and said, "Yo, let's do this." Matter of fact, in some cases, the songs were pretty much done other than Chuck's vocals. He was on the road, he'd come back, boom, lay vocals and leave.
Now, was Ollie D a temporary member of the Bomb Squad?
Who?
Ollie D?
I mean, I don't know. And I'll tell you why I don't know. The Bomb Squad name didn't exist until the third album. The first two albums, if you look at any of the records, there's no mention of the word bomb or squad.
Right.
They were just people working. Matter of fact, the first album doesn't say it was produced by anybody other than Bill Stephanie and executive produced by Rick Rubin. I think Hank might have gotten a production credit, but everybody was still there. It was Hank, Keith, Eric, myself, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with the second album. Things changed because people were like, yo, I ain't getting credit. Eventually, by the time the third album happened, there was some dissension among the ranks saying, yo, what's up with this? Not getting, producer credit. So everybody wanted to pretty much break up and say, screw this. And then Chuck came up with an idea. I'll make a blanket term, the Bomb Squad, and there'll be stamp on everything. So no matter who did what, your name will be on it. But by that time I left. So my name wasn't on it.
Okay. That was around, 90?
Yeah, around that time.
Did you work on Son of Berserk at all?
Not on the first album.
Okay.
I did pre-production, but not like when they went in the studio to do that. No.
Okay.
When you left, I'm sorry, that's when you to the military?
I went to the military. So
okay.
I left and went to the military. That's what broke up the Kings of Prussia, actually. Crack J went to college. He went to University of Southern Connecticut, I think. He's a professor there now. He went there on a football scholarship. I left. I went to the military. I did 6 years.
What made you do that? What made you?
I wasn't getting the credit or the money I was supposed to be getting from these records, and I'm like, you know what?
Okay.
I don't need this. I wasn't doing it to make records. I was doing it because I enjoyed doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I left. I'm like, I can still scratch and do parties, and I don't need to do it for them. So I left. Went to the military. When I got a degree, I got 2 degrees. And I still kept on rocking. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, I went home on leave, and I did the scratches for Transformers by Leaders of the New School. I was at my house. Busta and Brown came through with Dinko, and they were like, "Yo, they're hanging out." My mom's was hanging out. I got video of that. I'm actually breaking in the living room with Busta popping. My boy Miguel's there from the old crew. We were hanging out, chilling. Brown, I bought a drum machine back with me. Brown was rocking the drum machine in my room. I got this on videotape somewhere, and they're like, "Yo, we going to the studio to work on our album." So I went with them. And they're like, "Can you do some scratching?" I did scratching on Transformers, which, again, uncredited.
Mm-hmm.
So what else is new? But you hear any other records on that album that has scratches like that? Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Now you can tell what's me and what's not me.
Right.
Did you have a role on Slick Rick's Great Adventure of Slick Rick?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, about that time we were starting to make a big come up with this. We weren't even called the Bomb Squad yet, but Russell Simmons and he had an artist management company, Rush, but he also had a producer management company. And the members of the Bomb Squad were part of that. So he started kind of throwing mad projects at him, especially stuff that was Def Jam oriented. We even did Orange Juice Jones stuff that was never released.
Wow.
Yeah, so I did a song called We Were Friends Before We Were Lovers, and it was supposed to be the follow-up to The Rain.
The Rain. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was basically, you know, him singing to a chick who was trying to talk to him and his boy. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, yo, we were friends before we met you, and we were friends after you're gone. That kind of thing. That was the chorus.
Wow.
And the record never came out. But we did a lot of stuff, man. And one of those was the Slick Rick thing. And at the same time, we also were doing Rising to the Top by Dougie. And they were broken up at the time. So the idea of Hank was, we're going to get them back together, which didn't happen. But that was his idea. Right?
Right.
So
is it true that Slick wasn't too crazy about the a lot of the production on it?
He wasn't.
Nah.
I mean, the production wasn't all done by the Bomb Squad. I mean, half of it was done. Jam Master Jay did some joints. Rick did his own joints. Mm-hmm. Rick did Children's Story. Rick is a talented dude. But the idea of doing 2 tracks of vocals and rhyming against them, that came from us.
Okay.
But yeah, you know, we did some stuff. Even like when we did Let's Get Crazy, there's a part where I scratched, you know, excuse me, Dougie Fresh. And that was kind of like a little diss that Rick wanted in there, you know, because Doug was doing his thing. But some of them songs weren't even written by Rick. Teacher was written by my man, you know, we called him Freddie Dead at the time. And his boy Naheem. There were 2 cats that Chuck was mentoring and they were writing. They wrote Teacher. And Leaders even wrote a song for Rick. He just didn't make that record.
Yo, man.
Crazy.
Yo.
Hold on. Before we talk about anything else, maybe this is a good time to kind of just talk a little. Let's separate a little bit. Why is there such a, I don't know how to call it, misconception? Why is there like such a fairy tale when it comes to hip hop? Why does it seem like things are portrayed to be a certain way when they're really not?
That's always been hip hop.
No, I know.
When people say keep it real, right?
Right.
The streets have never been real. Every dude on the corner before hip hop, forget about hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
Drug dealers talk about how much drugs they sold. They over exaggerate. Mm-hmm. And some of the people they killed, if they even killed anybody, which a lot of times they didn't, but they talk about it. Why? Because it gives them this larger than life imagery that keeps all the suckers away from them. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And that's just the street. That's a self-preservation thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I've yet to meet anybody that's gotten their ass beat. Even though I hear everybody talking about how they beat somebody's ass, I want to know where all the guys that got their ass beat are at. Because every time I ask a dude, I never got my ass beat. Then where are all these dudes who you beat and everybody else beat? Because I haven't ran into any of them. You know what I'm saying? There's got to be, are they on an island somewhere? Or the dudes that lost? Because everybody I speak to, I never got my ass beat. So everybody I spoke to is this winner. I want to know where the losers are at.
Right.
The thing is, you know, everybody's won some, everybody's lost some. I want to know the other person's side. But the bottom line is those are perceived as weaknesses. So because of that, people keep that dirty stuff inside, right? And that moved on to hip hop too. I mean, why would that be any different? Hip hop is just a mirror reflection of what was happening in the streets anyway. And what's happening in the streets is, some people kill people. And a lot of people lied about it. A lot of people told stories about it, even though they heard it from their mans, even though they weren't there. So hip hop is no different.
Right. But the whole thing behind, I guess I'm speaking more as far as writing. Like it seems like in hip hop in particular, it was, if you know, in order to be a dope MC, you had to be the one that writes your lyrics, right? That's why.
Wait, stop. Who said that?
No. I'm saying that's what it portrayed to be.
That's what it became.
Right.
It wasn't like that. Grandmaster Caz was writing the majority of the routines for Cold Crush.
Right. Which we didn't find out later.
But there was never a you ain't an MC to the other dudes, was there? Here's the thing. Caz was the last MC to join Cold Crush. He wasn't the original member of Cold Crush.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There were cats that were writing rhymes for other rappers well before that. Just, I mean, even before the Rapper's Delight fiasco thing. I'm talking about in the hood. Some guy would come up and do their routines. I mean, they all knew how to rhyme, but I mean, you know, one dude was like, "Yo, I wrote a routine. We gonna rock this one." You see what I'm saying? That's how it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
And it was more about your performance because at the time, the only way you were gonna hear this is if they performed it.
Mhm.
It wasn't like cats were freestyling off the head. That stuff all came out later.
Mhm.
So things kind of morphed and evolved to where we are now, but it changed. It wasn't always the same. Even the rhymes. I mean, what the hell was the rap the Sugar Hill Gang talking about on their first record? They were talking about shit they didn't have.
Right.
Drinking continentals and houses, and this is the funny shit. It's all about I have a color TV. Like that was like, oh, like you know what I'm saying? Like word is like everybody got color TV now, but back in those days, man, you know, I remember my first TV was a black and white TV.
Black and white, yeah.
I got it as a teenager, and I was happy. Look at that. Little kids got phones and TVs when they're babies, and I didn't get my first TV till I was a teenager.
Mhm.
And it was a secondhand TV my grandfather fixed. Found it, fixed it, and that was what I got.
Hmm.
So, you know, hip hop has always been about kind of like this is the end result. Isn't it dope? Look at the message. Who wrote the message? There wasn't any the Furious Five other than Mel's verse. A
Right.
child was born with no state of mind, but that was tacked on at the end. The whole rest of the song was written by Duke Booty.
Duke, right.
Flash even had nothing to do with the record.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. That like for the average person that's just listening and maybe catching a video, you know, like
The
you
betrayal.
didn't know, huh?
The betrayal is.
I mean, at least
Remember when we talked to Cut Creator, and we was disappointed how he had no involvement in a lot of stuff.
None.
right.
Jazzy J did the first record. Bobcat did the second one.
Right.
Well,
But you
Jazzy
hear
J did the first album except for I Need a Beat and Dangerous. That was LL's original DJ before they
Right.
broke up.
Right.
So that's what I mean. You hear, for example, even Public Enemy, you hear Terminator X all the time. So what I mean is just us as we're young, you know, you gotta remember we're young at the time listening. It's what's kind of
But see, the industry's
up in your mind.
the industry's outside of rap was like that anyway. I just told you Bernard Purdy played on 17 records by the Beatles. So, and you thinking that's Ringo. Ringo was a huge star. He still is a huge star.
Right.
But
Right.
the thing about it is the music industry has always been like that. I mean, I think the Beatles were kind of one of the first groups that we play our own instruments, we write our stuff, and we actually are the artists. It was that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But before that, artists didn't write their own thing or their own music.
Right, which to me is normal. Like in any other genre, I mean, I'm not saying hip hop is a genre, but in any other genre of music, to me, it's normal. If somebody writes and you sing it or whatever, it's not frowned upon. And it just seems that in hip hop, at some point in time, it became something that was frowned
Right.
upon.
It became something like that.
Like
But
even
the thing about it
production,
is,
it was like, oh, Dre's, you know, Dre, and meanwhile, there's like five of, you know, whatever amount of people.
well, Seth G did all the BDP's joints where it was his
same
thing.
thing,
So
exactly.
the thing about it is, again, the industry never changed. It was always that way.
The industry was the industry, and
But again, it's the front men that always got to be like, nah, you know, I did that. You know, again, it's the hip hop, the dude on the corner lying about,
right, I got
I fought 5 guys yesterday. It's Eddie Murphy, man, and Trading Places, man, talking about, yo, man, you know, it wasn't cops, it was cops. You know, they brought me in here. You know, why were you crying? It was tear gas. It's kind of used on crowds. You know what I'm saying? I'm a karate man. You know, I got a chain belt and kung fu. So all that stuff. That's what hip hop is. It's that loudmouth dude.
All right, got you.
Trying to get everybody to get off of him by telling stories.
Right.
And that's it's escapism. You know what I'm saying? We grew up in an era in the early 70s of watching anime like Battle of the Planets.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Which was called Gatchaman in Japan.
G-Force.
G-Force, exactly, right? Yeah. So everybody wanted a superpower. You know, comic books. I grew up reading comic books. You know, so everybody wanted to be that superhero. That I'm the mild, meek, Bruce Banner, but you piss me off, I turn into the Hulk, man. And so there was always a secret wall.
Yeah.
That behind there, this is happening, but you don't show that. You show, like, come on, how many people would, like, if the Hulk actually was known to be Bruce Banner by the enemy,
Right.
it's like, let's just wait till you judge Bruce Banner and kill this dude.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But he's like, you protect that.
So I get also what I'm trying to get at. It always amazed me that we're at this point in time and we still have these discrepancies, right? With timelines and 50 years, not 50 years, and all of this stuff. That it seems to me that because of so many years of, I guess, I don't know if hiding or just kind of portraying to be a certain thing, and now here we are trying to correct a lot of misinformation. You know what I mean? Like, and to me personally, I feel that some of that has to do with certain people's narratives. Like, I was looked at this person, and that's how I make my living, and da da da. If the real truth comes out, that might take away from me.
Well, see, again,
You know what I mean?
it's a money
right
thing.
or no?
Is it taking away what? Take away your possible bag? Well,
Yeah,
see, the thing is,
bag or credibility.
It's about the bag, because and I mentioned this recently about this 50th anniversary stuff.
Mhm.
And I said there's only 3 ways you can make money. One, have some kind of skill that needs to be exploited, whether you rhyme, whether you write, whether you scratch, whether you dance, whatever it is.
Mhm.
2, a lot of those first generation dudes can't do it anymore.
Right.
So how do you make money? You tell a story about it.
Right.
But your story has to involve you being either first, you being around longer, because they'll always default back to the big names anyway. Want to talk about DJs from the 70s? We could talk to Herc, he's still here. Or talk to Flash, he's still here. You know, Disco King Mario's not here. You know, Junebug's not here. You know, a lot of the DJs from back in those days are not here anymore. So you got to talk, you know, so it's like I could talk to some dude that said he DJ'd and he was probably around the same time, but why? I'll talk to Flash. Everybody already acknowledges he's this guy that did all this stuff. So you start defaulting back to the same old people. So they keep, perpetuating the same story. Now, I'm not saying Flash is lying. I'm just saying, I mean, KRS-One was running around saying Flash invented the crossfader. Negative. There were mixers with crossfaders before that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've seen pictures of like
the first mixer with an actual crossfader was a stereo mixer called Red, and it was made by the same dudes that made Bozak mixers, right? So that mixer was actually less known for it having a crossfader and more known for it actually being a stereo mixer, because at the time it was only mono. So
it had the switch. You mean that one had like a switch that said mono to stereo?
No, it had a stereo output. You could hear 2 channels, where the other one was just one mono output.
Okay.
So that's really what it was like. Oh, that was the thing, right? And then people would talk about like the mix, how to actually seamlessly blend 2 records. Francis Grasso was doing that in clubs before Herc even did his party. Did he extend the break? No, but apparently now that the 50th anniversary stories have been coming out, even Herc didn't do that at that party in 73. I heard that didn't happen until about 75. Which makes sense, because Clark Kent said he didn't meet Herc until about 75. So what's the 73 thing with the Herculoids?
Right. Was that the same reason why they said Clark's name was on that flyer?
That flyer was already proven to be false,
right.
And fabricated, because according to Cindy, they couldn't find the original flyer, so they had it replicated. But they added his name because they wanted to pay homage to him as being part of the original crew, but he wasn't at the party.
Right.
Apparently, neither were any B-boys. So if the 73 date is to be believed, it's like, well, he named B-boys and he extended the breaks, and that's when it all started. But he didn't name B-boys at that event because there were no B-boys there. He didn't extend the break there. So when did that happen? It happened 2 years later. That's significant, right?
Right.
Because my crew, the Bronx Boys, started in 75. It started in 74, actually, as a graffiti crew. It became a rocking crew in 75 when TT Rock hit the floor and started doing floor moves. So what were the B-boys doing all the way up until then? You see what I'm saying? And, with respect to Charlie Rock, who was one of the first, he says, I don't know what they were doing, because I was around, but I was a kid. So I would go to the park with my aunt or whatever and see what I can see, but I don't remember much of anybody rocking on the ground before, the mid 70s.
Mhm.
So I have to rely on what they say. You
Right.
see what I'm saying? And to them, they did, they said they went to the ground, but in what capacity? Was it like James Brown? He would do a split and come up?
Right. Right.
Okay, well, that's going to the ground technically, but that's not what we will recognize as breaking the day, right? So,
Right.
so those, it's kind of like the missing link. We already know what came first and we already know what came later, but how does that connect? Where's the connectivity? What's the
Right.
connective tissue, right? So the connective tissue is what's important to me, because I want to know how it went from whatever this was to this.
Mhm.
And I'll never know, or we won't know, because I think people are so invested in keeping their legacy intact so that they can get paid finally from all these
Mhm.
years and not get paid and watching people afterward get paid. So if you remove the getting paid aspect, can we get the truth?
Mm. Right. Right.
Now, I've had people tell me, well, you got an agenda, Juice. I'm like, why? It doesn't matter either way, whether you started or this dude started. I'm not first generation.
Mhm.
I'm borderline second, third generation, if you want to call it that. So it doesn't affect me because my legacy isn't attached to, hey, he did it first. My legacy is attached to, I'm still nice now.
Mhm. Right. Right.
So if you want to hire me, you're going to hire me because I can still do what I used to do and better. Not, oh, I used to do it 30, 40 years ago and I can't do it no more. So let me just tell you my story.
Mm.
You already heard the stories. Enough talk. Let me show you what I can do.
Right. Right. Right.
And that comes to the third way you can get paid, telling a story
Mhm.
from a historian standpoint.
Mhm.
I can't do any of that stuff. I wasn't there, but I could put together the blocks and show you what it was supposed to be. And now we have more of that than we have the other one.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Go ahead.
No, before we move on, I just want you to explain. There's something I heard you talk about that I found very interesting. Can you explain a little bit your concept as far as the hip hop prism?
Oh yeah, that's my Johnny Juice diffractive prism of hip hop theory.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I like it because it makes a lot of sense. So if you could just kind of explain it to
Right.
our audience.
I don't. I mean, you want to call it a culture? That's cool. That's all. I consider hip hop more like a verb.
Mhm.
So just like when you take a prism and you shine white light into it, it breaks the light into multiple colors because the light spectrum. You already heard of Roy G. Biv, right? Red,
Mhm.
orange, yellow,
Mhm.
green, blue, violet, blah 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 blah, right? Um, Ironically, when you get a resistor for electronics, they also have a color code on there based on dB Roy G. Biv, 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. But that's I digress. So I believe the prism is reverse. The colors represent all the input I get from all different areas of life. And then my internal prism processes that. And then my expression comes out on the other side as that one light. That process from taking all of those influences and spitting it out the other way, to me, the process is hip hop. Not the result, but the process. Because the process also involves personal factors, right? So, example, Run DMC wore fedora hats, right? If a fedora hat is sitting on the table, is that fedora hat hip hop? No.
No,
Old white Jewish dude puts the fedora on. Is that hip hop?
right. No,
Run DMC puts it on their head. Is that hip hop?
it becomes hip hop. Right. Right.
Why?
Right.
Nothing's changed other than the person that put it on.
Right.
Because the person filtering the process of them filtering what they're doing, what they're experiencing, that is hip hop to me. So it's not about the output; it's about the process of filtering that.
Gotcha. So I guess that's why it makes a lot of sense when I heard Grandmaster Caz say this first. I don't know if somebody else before him, but he said that hip hop didn't invent anything; it reinvented everything. Is that
Yeah,
somewhere?
the irony of which you have these FBA dudes and everything saying it's this culture and it was created by these people. But Cass said it wasn't created by anybody; it was reinvented. And the thing is,
Right. But is
I
that
find it
somewhat?
hard to believe that any one culture came up with something when the people that invented this literally took from everything around them, and that includes all cultures and styles and whatever.
Mhm.
See, to me, hip hop isn't a culture based in any ethnicity. It's a counterculture to those ethnicities. And people say, you know, there's a big, were Latins there, or did they contribute? Did they come later? It's not Latin culture. It's not Latin culture at all. But it's not Black culture either, because every Black person wasn't doing this. Matter of fact, a lot of them were told, yo, take that out to the park with Herkimer. So the people that deviated from the standard Black culture at the time, and the people that deviated from Puerto Rican culture at the time, people that deviated from their white culture, those dudes created hip hop. They were deviants from their own culture, and they created a new culture. I don't understand what's so hard to understand about that.
Right. Going back on the timeline a little bit, you said you went to the service. At what point did you get back into music?
About 94. I mean, I was actually, that's not true. I was doing it the whole time I was still in the service. Like I said, I was in the service in 89 when I did the scratches on Leaders of the New Schools, right? I was at the scenario session. I got pictures of it. And that was when I was in the Navy. I came home and I'm like, yo, you know, Brown was like, yo, you back? Yo, we going to Manhattan, man. We gonna do the song with Tip and them. I'm like, all right, I'll be right there. And we went.
Talk a little bit about that session.
Oh, it was dope, man. It was freezing that day. It was brick outside, man. And we went to Manhattan and everybody was there. De La Soul. Well, Paz and Mace were there. Black Sheep was there. Chris Lighty, rest in peace, was there. Tip, Jerobi, Fife, Buster, Brown Dinko, my boy RPM, he's the DJ for Rumpletilskins and the producer of Rumpletilskins. Geronimo, rest in peace, from Leaders. He was the dancer, but he was also one of the rappers of Rumpletilskin. There was a lot of people there. Everybody I mentioned was on that record. Well, not everybody. Fife, Brown, Dinko, Buster, Black Sheep, both of them. Paz and Mace rhymed on it. Baby Chris rhymed on it. You know, there was like this huge record. They had mad samples. It just, you know, it had the, you know, the Jack McDuff sample, the dun dun dun, you know, Obligato. But it also had Engine Number 9 by Wilson Pickett. It had like 6 or 7 different samples that came in and out. And Paz's verse was so crazy. This is one thing I'll never forget. He didn't like the beat. So he told him, take all the samples out, just keep the drums, the Little Miss Lover drums from Jimi Hendrix. He killed it. And then he was done. He was like, whatever. Everybody looked around, was like, grabbed their rhyme book and started writing their rhymes over again. Everyone. That's how nasty his shit was. Pasta Noose is one of the greatest rappers that ever existed, and he's so underrated. But everybody rhymed, even Baby Chris. I remember Chris's rhymes. Baby Chris, I'm kicking it like this. Baby Chris, I'm kicking it like that. I'm on scenario, I'm on the whole stroll. Throw up your hands and go for what you know. Meet me at the something, meet me at the show, meet me at your girl's house, blow for blow. Yo, I remember the rhymes, man. Yo, it was like, what? I'm like, this dude's rhyming. But
what happened?
They took him off. Mace had a record. I got gift the gab and gift the hustle. Yeah, I'm fat, but I still got muscle. Some other efforts still wanna tussle. I slapped that ass without no trouble. Yo, I remember the rhymes, man.
That's crazy. Damn.
Then afterwards, we went to the diner. You know, that's the Long Island. Then went back to Long Island, went to the diner, and then I went to the crib. I got the pictures. And I got a copy on. I got 2 copies on cassette, 2 different versions.
With those verses on it? Oh wow.
What are you waiting on?
I guess that's a lot of clearing though, right? Like if you want to put that out, how does that work?
I would never release it, you know, because women do get money from somebody else's work. I would never do that. But I mean, every once in a while I rock it at a party, like before I rocked the scenario, and they're like, oh, and I mean, but now they've been floating around the internet for a while, so anybody can get them.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course that. Damn.
That's crazy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it was cool because I remember being in the side room. It's funny because none of the copies I have Tip on it. Like everybody else is on it, but he didn't get on it.
Oh.
So Tip knew I was in the military and I was home. This was during Desert Shield. Storm didn't start yet. And I just came from overseas from that. So he did this whole freestyle rhyme about it. And we were sitting in the room. So my man, one of my homeboys was beatboxing, and he did that. And it was crazy. I'm like, yo, he did a whole roundabout being me in the service. That was pretty dope. I wish I recorded that.
Oh man, can you talk a little bit about the X Vandals?
Sure. There's a punk group called Reconstruction. And, I think they did a cover of a PE record at some point, but the guy Vagabond that was managing them and he did their videos, and he's a good friend of mine. He worked on, I think he was a production assistant on Fight the Power, the video. So he knew Chuck and all of that through that. But they wanted to do some side stuff with Not for Profit, the lead rapper singer. So it came to me, and it came to Chuck actually. And at the time, my studio was in Chuck's garage. We cleaned out his garage and made it to a recording studio. Right? I called it the Terror Dome, but it was all my equipment. So we were in there one day, and they came to visit Chuck about maybe rhyming on a verse or something. I don't know. So Chuck walked them into the studio, introduced us, and that's the first time Vagabond and Not for Profit heard about a Puerto Rican being with PE. So I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, Chuck was like, yeah, it's Juice. He's been down forever, blah, blah, blah. He runs the studio here. He's blah, blah. At the time, I think I was just about to take over Chuck's label. And so they were shocked. I'm like, man, okay. So Chuck said, I'll be right back. And in that time, they were like, yo, man, I had no idea, man. Can I hear some of your stuff? So I started playing some stuff, and it was like, yo, let's do a project together. So we came up with the project X Vandals as an homage to the graffiti crew X Vandals.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
So, by the way, one of my TDB brothers, Eder, he's a member of X Vandals. So,
okay. Lava was down with them too, right?
Right.
Yeah, rest in peace, Lava.
Yeah. So we put together a record, you know what I'm saying, and then we put together a second record, and Not for Profit is an extremely talented vocalist and a writer, extremely talented. We got Chuck on the record. I think we got DMC. We got a bunch of people on the record, but a talented brother, and that's how that X Vandals thing came about. And I enjoyed working on those records actually.
That's crazy. Can you talk a little bit? Were you around when Ice Cube came over and wanted to get some production and stuff from the Bomb Squad?
Kinda, yes and no. I mean, I was in and out. But from what I remember, he wasn't coming to do it from the Bomb Squad. He came over and he asked somebody else, and they said the Bomb Squad. So then he came over to the Bomb Squad. Remember I said that Rush was pushing to have all his, his producers be on everybody's record? That was one of those things. That's from what I remember. And speaking of Eric and all of them, Ice Cube and Jinx and them guys gave Eric and those guys the records to sample. They say, hey, this is what we want. They put it together.
Okay.
And it kind of turned into a thing where they kind of taught Ice Cube and his camp how to make records, like on their own. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
And then he learned very well because he went on to make some phenomenal stuff after that.
Right.
But that was the whole initial process of that.
Right.
From what I hear, it's even in one of those books, like Rakim told me or something like that. Cube would come into the studio and wonder where the hell where Hank Shockley was. Because like I said, Hank wasn't the beat writer. He came in at the end and was like, dope. It was like Eric and Keith, and he would always see them. And Eric tells the story how he's like, yo, I don't see Hank, so I'm gonna whip your ass or something like that. And he was like, whip my ass for? I ain't got nothing to do with it. It's like one of those things. And Eric is the nicest guy on the planet. Eric is one of my really good friends, and I love the dude to death. And he's one of my mentors. And he's semi-retired now. And every time I'm around his way, he doesn't live in New York anymore. Every time he lives near my daughter's actually. And every time I'm down there, he always makes time to come check me, and we go have a bite to eat or something like that. Great brother, extremely talented dude.
Nice.
You talked a little bit about being director of operations for Chuck D Slam Jam Records. Is that something you're still holding at this moment?
No, a long time ago, Chuck had a distribution deal with Sony or Columbia, one of them, or maybe it was the same company at the time. I don't know. I was separated from that situation, the PE situation, for a while at the time. But I came back from the military. I was working with Brown, doing some new stuff, working with some people. And then I bumped into Chuck. Chuck was like, yo, saw him at Walmart. I was buying a microwave oven and he was buying some stuff to fix his toilet. Regular home improvement crap. There wasn't even no fly stuff. He goes, Mr. Rosado. And I'm like, Mr. Ridenhour. And he's like, yo, man, what's up? What's going on? I'm like, buying some stuff for the crib. What you doing? Same. We talked for a second. Then he tells me he's going to be in Chicago working on some documentary called Godfathers and Sons about the blues. I'm like, oh, it's good for you. I mean, I don't care. I left the situation because, I already told you why before. So I'm like, he's still cool with me. I had no interest in really doing anything new with him. And then he was like, yo, we're going to Chicago to shoot this movie. I'd love you to be there. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. So yeah, we're leaving Friday. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Where you live? You still live in the same place? I'm like, no, I'm living right up around the corner, blah, blah, blah. I'll come there Friday. I'll scoop you. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm sitting there in the crib and I hear honking. I come downstairs. He's outside. Yo, I told you I was coming Friday. And I thought he was full of shit, actually. So I'm like, yo. I'm like, hold on. So I want to grab some stuff, grab my mixer. I thought he was, it was like, whatever. We always get that. We're going to do something and nothing happens, right? We fly to Chicago. We do this movie with the guys from Chess Records, Muddy Waters Band.
Okay.
We land in Chicago, and then we got to pick up my boy Kyle, who was one of Chuck's artists, at another airport. So as we're driving, Chuck pulls out this big book with CDs, right? People sending him beats, whatever he's playing them. He goes, Juice, you got anything? I'm like, as a matter of fact, I do. So I start pulling out some stuff, and he's like, yo. So then Kyle jumps in the car because we finally get there, and he's like, yo, Chuck, who's this stuff? Who sent you that? He's like, this is Juice's. And he was like, yo, when we get back to New York, we got to talk. So we come back from New York, and then Kyle was like, we need to talk about doing an album. And he was signed to Slam Jams with the distribution deal. So we recorded most of the stuff in my crib. And that's what Kyle said, you should move your equipment into Chuck's crib because that's where his stuff was at. And simultaneously, Chuck said, yo, I think you should move your stuff in the third place. So I did. So we had a mega studio in there with one side of the room was Kyle's equipment, one side was mine. We had a live room, we had a vocal booth. It was crazy. And then that became like the super productive period where we just banging out a lot of stuff. And then Chuck was like, I got a label with all these artists. What do you think about running it? So I did. I took a stab at it, and I tried to structure it. I came up with a scoring system so that we could kind of wean off the artists that we just like, listen, they're not really performing the way we should, or maybe they need work, I did it for quite a while, all the way up until I think right after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2013. I think 2014, that's when I left again. I said, I gotta leave. And I didn't come back until permanently until the beginning of this year.
Oh, wow. It's that recent. Okay.
We actually had a serious falling out the second time. Like a serious one. After me being up at Chuck's crib for 14 years, there was a serious falling out. Not really with him, but with the organization. And I'm like, I'm out. Because I'm seeing, history repeat itself. And I was not happy. So I left. And then he hit me up at the beginning of this year. I mean, we've talked in between. When his father passed away, Mr. Ridenhour, and he called me. I gave him some insight because, my father passed away when I was younger. So I was able to talk with him about that and kind of really, give him my perspective because that was something that he was just not used to.
Right.
And every once in a while, there'd be a little conversation here, but not really. But then he hit me up at the beginning of the year and was like, a long conversation ensued. And it was like, what do you think? It's a third chance, please, and so I agreed to come back.
What is that coming back? What does that mean exactly? Like doing what?
Well, that's a good question. That's what I said. Doing what? And he didn't really have an answer, right? He's like, just doing things. I'm like, nah, man, I need something more concrete than that. And there's no secret that there was lawsuits happening fairly recently. Chuck and Flav are going back and forth with a lawsuit. It's really Flav's had a lawsuit against Chuck's entity, not really Chuck. Chuck's entity didn't just include him. So Chuck has been split from the other people in the entity. Things worked out, and now Chuck and Flav are back. So he was like, now that we're back, We want to do things, and he wanted me to act in a production capacity. You know, we're doing shows. You know, come up with set lists. Let's narrow it down. Personnel involved. Blah blah blah. So it's more of a. It was semi-creative and semi-administrative.
Okay.
So, and then I'm also. We have a DJ rotation now. The Lord is the DJ because he's been the DJ for actually most of PE's career. They're live DJ.
Mm-hmm.
He started, I think, 99 or 2000. So been a DJ for 23 years, whereas Norman was only the DJ for like 11 or 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
So Norman wanted to come back. So Chuck said, fine. But, you know, Norman had conditions that were, you know, that had to be worked out with Chuck and them. So now it's like Lord DJs. If he's not available because he's doing Cypress Hill, you know, Norman could DJ, and if not, I'll DJ, depending on the situation. I end up doing a bunch of stuff with PE over the summer for the 50th anniversary stuff, and then I did the iHeartRadio Music Festival with them. And, you know, and there's some talk about doing stuff this year coming up, but none of that is etched in stone yet. But again, you know, it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, we to see. I got a chance to see you guys at the set in the Bronx. Yeah, for the 50th.
Oh, you were at the KRS-One jam?
KRS-One, yeah.
Or as well, the Bronx Park.
That thing was like a first of all, Flav wasn't even supposed to be there. Flav just showed up. Like, he didn't just show up. We knew like a day or two before, but there was no rehearsal with him. And so that whole thing was like kind of made up.
That's the
you
one.
See what I'm saying?
The one before the Bronx.
No, it was the one at hip hop the hip hop museum.
The Cedric Avenue. Yeah.
You know, the Cedric Avenue KRS-One thing that was planned, but the one the day before that,
didn't
even know Flav was going to be there.
Oh wait, so that's what I'm saying. So I'm just because that's crazy because she wouldn't have been able to give him that painting that day then.
Right.
That was the last minute. Yo, I want to be there. Blah 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 blah. He was never scheduled to be there.
Look how.
And then the KRS-One thing, of course, since he was there already, you know, boom.
Right.
You know? And remember when I told you when we were younger, I had my little posse with Joe Conzo's brother, Jared, my boy Boo Boo, and I mentioned my boy George. George's older sister has like I think 3 kids with Flav. He ended up years later after I left the Bronx, moved to Long Island. He moved to the Bronx years after PE started, and he ended up having kids with her. So, and then I saw a picture. I'm like, oh man, you know Angie? He's like, wait, I know Angie. You know how you know Angie? I'm like, I grew up with her brother, man. We were best friends. So it's a small world. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's funny? Chuck's, oh man, I don't know if his wife now, or from back in the days for sure. I think her name was Deborah.
Deborah, yeah, his first wife.
That's my homeboy's cousin. I can't remember, but Onyx from the group KMD.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So Onyx, they I forgot how they're related. I forgot if it's his cousin. But that was Chuck's wife.
Yeah, I know Deb. I know Deb very well. His mother, his 2 oldest kids.
Yeah. That's
That's Hyra and Dominique's mother. Dominique, by the way, is Chuck's assistant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She had a bachelor's degree, and she does a lot of Chuck's logistics. She's really on point. So,
right.
I remember doing her Sweet 16.
Oh, wow.
so it's dope, man, to see that she's out there like really handling her business.
Okay.
That's dope.
Can you talk a little bit about composing music for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's movie?
Ironically, that was a mistake as well. Chuck was on the plane and he overheard Kareem and his manager Deborah, her name is Deborah as well, Morales, talking about how they had to redo the music and all the production for this documentary they were doing because I don't know, they invested all this money and something happened and it didn't come out the way they wanted to, and Kareem was going through his treatments for cancer, So it was a rough time for Kareem, and Chuck heard it, and of course, you know, Chuck was like, "That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar," because he's a super sports nerd. And he was like, "Yo, any way I can help." So Kareem was like, "Hey, you know, I mean, I couldn't ask you to do that, but you know, we could donate music or blah blah whatever." And Chuck said, "Well, what do you need?" And then he told him, "You know, we gotta have to have it rescored. I have to have it reproduced. I gotta have another film company come in here and shoot." It was just like crazy. So I was like, "Damn, man." And Jeff Bridges initially, uh, was it Jeff Bridges or Bo Bridges? One of those dudes. He actually narrated it, but they ended up getting Jamie Foxx to do it or redoing it. I had a meeting with Chuck and Kareem in Manhattan, and he was like, "Yo, you know, I need music, I need this, I need that." So we were like, "Yo, you know, we'll do it for nothing." So me and Chuck did the theme song, and then I ended up doing about 5 or 6 pieces that ended up being part of the score. And that's how that came about. Again, it was like, I got you. I think Kareem paid me like a little bit of money to do one song with Umar Ben Hassan of the Last Poets and Chuck,
Mm.
but he ended up not using the record, but I still got it.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
Is that your introduction into scoring, film scoring?
no.
I know
I
you
did a
did
bunch of
the
little.
Ali
I,
rap.
no, I mean, I did a bunch of low budget stuff before that. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? My boys would shoot films like, "Yo, can you do this?" And I'm like, "Okay," and I
Right.
would do it, you know, because they're my boys. And but the Ali rap thing that started again a mistake. Chuck hit me up when I was working as an electronic engineer because I'm an electronic engineer, and he called me. He's like, "Juice, where you at? You at work?" I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "What time you get off?" I said, "5." He goes, "Come here right after that." I'm like, "Okay." Drove right to the studio. Was on my way home. I was living in Queens at the time, actually. So went right back to Chuck's crib. My equipment was still there. That's where my studio was. And he was like, "I need some music to do this thing for ESPN. It's about Muhammad Ali." I'm like, "Okay." He said, "You got any beats?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "As a matter of fact, can you write a new one?" I'm like, "All right." So as I'm writing the beat, he's writing the rhymes right there. He's sitting there, he's writing, I'm writing. My boy Kyle walks in because remember Kyle used to be in studio too. And eventually he moved out of state, took his stuff with him. But by this time, I think it was mainly my spot.
Mm.
And
Okay.
Kyle heard it and was like, "Yo, that's dope." Then he did the chorus. He sang the chorus. I'm still working on the music as they're working on the lyrics. And we put it together in maybe like 4 hours. And I emailed it to ESPN per Chuck's direction. He said, "Email it to this dude." I emailed it to him. Then the dude was like, "Yo, you know how to score?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And he's like, "We need to score." I'm like, "Okay, do you have any of the footage? You know, anything for me to watch?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "How the hell am I going to score this without looking at anything?"
Yeah.
They said, "We can send you a cue sheet." That's where, if you ever seen a cue sheet, it has like the time on it, like, you know, 23 seconds. Ali walks in room. Need agitating music. Blah blah. And descriptors. And I'm like, "All
Right.
right."
Right.
So they sent me cue sheets for the whole thing. I'm like, "Man, I gotta write songs to something that I gotta visualize." So I did. I wrote like a bunch of pieces and I sent it to him. I did that overnight. And the next day, later that day, they said, "Perfect. We
Wow.
just we want to use one of the pieces though to go in and out of commercial because it was gonna be on TV. So I gotta have like what they call a tag. They didn't think thinking it in to go in a commercial, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then he got nominated for an Emmy Award for Outstanding Music Composition a few months later. So again,
Wow.
that was done in 24 hours.
Crazy.
It's-
I remember seeing you guys, Public Enemy, Brother J, Dinko D, Moni Love, Schoolie D for
Hip
the
Hop Gods Tour.
yes, sir, Indianapolis. What were some of your best memories?
Oh man, there was a bunch of them. Honestly, the best memories really were on the tour bus, man. I remember one time we were riding up to, I think it was in between Denver and Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I mean, yeah, I know Jackson Hole. I'm like, really? We doing a ski resort? So we driving up there on the tour bus. It's brick outside. It's snow. We seeing cows. You know, like somebody's doing a cattle run or something. And I threw on some beats, and Dinko started freestyling with Son of Berserk, TA, Son of Berserk, and Schoolie D just went in. and he was killing it. And that was like those memories were dope. And then he got up, and right at the end, it was like, oh, got up, just walked out like, yeah. And it was just like, yeah. And I got some of that footage too. I put it up on the internet. It's like those kind of things, like the camaraderie behind the scenes were great. As far as on stage, things changed. I remember doing the first few shows, I was DJing for Dinko. Now, Brown was supposed to be on the tour, but the day before the tour, he decided not to go. Like literally, like 11:59 p.m. the day before. Dinko's at the studio in Chuck's crib. I slept at Chuck's crib that night. Chuck wasn't even there. It's kind of like it was our studio at that point. So I slept there that night, and I told everybody to be at the studio bright and early. I paid for everybody to get to Manhattan, and then for us to take the bus down to DC, which was the first show. That's where the tour buses were. We had to get there first, and Brown didn't go. So I'm like, that whole night I spent redoing Dinko's set.
Mm.
So I had to change it.
Because
So after the first few shows, I realized there needs to be somebody else on stage with him. So I made the show so that it did a continual song through the whole thing, with breaks and everything in it. And I grabbed the mic and I ended up being on stage with Dinko, which I think by the time Indianapolis happened, I was doing that.
Right.
But the first few shows that it didn't happen that way. But you learn as you go along, that it'd probably be better if we do this. And then also Davey DMX did a DJ set, and it got to the point where I'm like, me and Moni Love would go out there and we do some breakdance battling. We do like top rock, we up rock, and I even hit the floor a few times. So that was what I remembered, like us doing fun stuff, like, yo, let's just go out there doing the thing and do this. And we did Minneapolis, man, and Schoolie D he would start a show with Smoke Some Kill. He would come out, and he come walking out, wilding. We decided instead, we threw on Jungle Love by the time, and we came out and did the Jungle Love dance. And we did that, and Jelly Bean Johnson from the time was there, so he came out on stage, and that was dope.
Did you know he's gonna be there?
No.
Wow.
Nice.
So, I heard Prince was actually in the house in the back and dipped out before anybody knew, but I can't confirm that.
Wow. 2013, what was you about to say?
It was 2013, yeah.
No, yeah. And you got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Public Enemy. What was that feeling like?
It was dope. I mean, we did like 3 shows that weekend. We came in, we did the Grammy Museum. It was like a talk with Chuck D, like one of those like the actual studio things. But I DJ'd it, so we was able to get. I got my Gibson, who owned Stanton at the time, loaned me a bunch of equipment, and the Gibson tour bus loaned it to Hard Groove. We did like some kind of panel discussion at the Gibson showroom in Beverly Hills. Me, Chuck, Jack Douglas, who was the original producer of Walk This Way by Aerosmith. He also did Imagine for John Lennon, and you name it. And Eddie Kramer, who did Jimi Hendrix and Kiss, and he was the main engineer at Electric Lady. He was there. And a couple of, and a man from King's X. So we did this thing, and I saw Terminator for the first time in decades. And everything was cool. We was up, we hung out, took some flicks. And afterwards, we dipped down on the tour bus, me and Hargrove, to do the Grammy Museum. And I started out with a Johnny Juice DJ set. And then they did an interview with me. Then they did an interview with Chuck. And then that was supposed to be it. But Chuck's like, Juice, I think we should do some joints. So me and him did it. And DJ Lord was there. So Lord got up, and I was on one turntable. He was on another turntable. And we were doing some shit that we don't even do during the regular show. Flav wasn't there, but we ripped it. And then the next day after that, we did the House of Blues in Beverly, in West Hollywood. We did that, and it was crazy. It was crazy. We killed it. Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin, and Leo Cohen was in the building. And so that whole 3 days was like crazy. And then the next day, we got walked over from the hotel to now it's called, I think, the Microsoft Theater or something. It was called the Nokia Theater at the time, right across from the Staples Center, which is now called Bitcoin Arena, I think, or something. But we went to there, And when we were in the lobby of the hotel, I ran into Edward James Olmos.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, yo, man, he's OG, man. So I had to give respect, man. And he gave me a good 10 minutes, man, and he didn't have to. He didn't
Nah.
have to. He had his people with him, and he was very gracious, smart guy, man. You know, and I mean, I can't say enough about him, man. You know, because you run into some people sometimes and their heads inflated. This dude was
Right.
grounded. I mean, I don't know what he is to other people, but to me, he treated me with respect, and and I didn't tell him why I was there or what, you know what I'm saying? And you
Mm.
know, it didn't matter to him. It wasn't like, yo, we get inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 10 minutes or whatever. It was more like, yo, man, I respect your work and how you introduce your culture into all the bodies of work you do, and you try to be as accurate as possible, and blah blah blah. And it's a good conversation, man. And that was a good start. You see what I'm saying to that day. And then we walked over because it's right there from where he was at. No cars needed. And people lying in the streets. It was really cool. During the day, we get to the tent where they give us credentials, and I ran into Penny Marshall. You know, Laverne from Laverne and Shirley. It just so happens that I worked with her maybe about a year before that, and Jack Douglas when they remade Walk This Way, the DMC and the guys, the guitars, and I did scratching them. So she's a director. She actually filmed it. So ran to Penny Marshall. That was cool. We did the red carpet walk. I got a kiss from the chick from Destiny's Child. Uh, Not Beyonce, but the chocolate one. Kelly Rowland.
Kelly Rowland. Yeah.
Yeah, so I told her, you got a beautiful dress. She says, thank you, gave me a kiss. I'm like, them shoes are nice too. She goes, you only get one kiss. I'm like, damn, man. So, and then as we were walking through the red carpet, I bang into these dudes in front of me, and I'm like, yo, and I turned around like, I'm sorry. And it was Cheech and Chong.
What? Yeah.
Yo,
You were like,
that was like, come on, man. And and of course Cheech was like, hey man, don't hit me like that from the back, man. This ain't San Quentin. And he's making jokes. I'm like, listen, you guys were a big part of my youth, extremely influential on me, man. You guys are geniuses. And then they got real serious, like, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Very smart dudes. Then we went into the green room and I ran into everybody, ran into Tom Morello, ran into John Fogerty from Creedence Clearwater Revival. We talked for a minute. It was like everybody was back there, man. Like, who wasn't there? Oh, we ran into Booker T from Booker T and the MGs.
wow.
Booker T Jones. And we took a picture. Me, Hank, Keith, and Chuck. The only one missing was Eric Sadler.
Wow.
So it was really dope, man. It was a great experience. Our table was right in the middle. Right next to that table was Quincy Jones got inducted. So he was sitting at the table with Oprah. Yeah, I know. Oprah, Jack Nicholson, like people like that where I hit their table. I'm like, we got Terminator, his pops, Flav, his moms. You know what I'm saying? That's our table. Their table's like, Jack Nicholson, Oprah. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Your table had like the Bronx, Hempstead, Roosevelt.
It was all good, man. And we was in the green room for a while. I was hanging out talking to some of the cats, and then it was time to go on stage. We walked onto the side of the stage, and I watched Usher do a Quincy Jones tribute with Michael Jackson song, blah 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 blah. And we were on the side waiting. Huge production. And I'm looking through these monitors on the side of the stage, mad monitors, and there's production people there. And right next to me is Mr. Harry Belafonte. So I start talking to him. I'm like, Mr. Belafonte, it's an honor to meet you and have you work in here with us and inducting us, because he inducted us, blah, 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 blah. And, he put his hand on my shoulder. He goes, yeah, well, young man, very proud of the work you guys have done, and blah, he gave me a little pep talk. He was like, once again, congratulations. I'm very honored to be here. Very eloquent. He was dressed sharp as a tack. And then he went out, he called him out. Spike Lee did the introduction, called him out. He went out. And when he started doing his introduction talk, we quietly started walking up onto the set and setting up our instruments. And of course, Chuck, Hank, I think Chuck, Hank, Keith, and Flave went out to the front with Griff to do the induction while we were getting the instruments ready. As soon as they were done, the whole stage lit up. We were already in place, and boom, we performed. Then I watched Rush get inducted. I watched the Foo Fighters do their introduction, and they killed it. And that was the first time meeting Dave Grohl, and I saw him again at the iHeartRadio Music Festival. This time, we kind of knew each other by then, but it's a great experience, man. Meeting, legends in other genres, talking to them, getting their insight on stuff. It's interesting to hear how they feel our influence was, and then it was really interesting for, I guess, for them to hear how we feel about their music as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Tom Morello said he modeled a lot of his guitar playing after the scratches in the records we did. So I'm like, really? That's interesting. So when you hear things like that, it's kind of dope, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you got to keep a level head and not get swollen, too gassed on your own shit. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about. Hip hop is about how dope you are and showing your skills. But at the same time, this at the base level, this is artistry. It's about expression. And as we say, it came from a dance thing because I started as a dancer. We don't dance to impress. We dance to express.
Mm.
So,
And then to get the girls.
So some people, yeah. That was never my intent.
Yeah, I'm just messing.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys they got the girls already. This is what you good. And here's the funny thing. Remember I told you how Chuck put all the groups together?
Yeah.
One of the questions he says, why are you here doing this?
Mm.
Some cats were like, I want to make all this money. Chuck says, all right, so I gave you $10 million. You still gonna stay here and do this?
Mm.
I want to get girls. Okay, I give you whatever woman you want right now in the business. You still gonna stay here and do this? Why are you doing it? And when he got to me, he goes, why are you doing this? And I said, I don't know. He goes, not for girls. I'm like, no. For money? I'm like, money would be nice, but that's not why I'm doing it. He goes, so why are you here? I said, if I wasn't here, I'd still be doing this. It's not about me being here with you. It's what I do.
Mm.
And he was like, and when he shook his head, he smiled, he looked at Hank, and Hank shook his head. And later on, Chuck told me that was he said that was the time when I realized you were the one that needed to be around us.
Mm.
And because of that, Chuck kept me around and said, this guy's essential because I had the right attitude.
Right.
The skills, that's a prerequisite, but the attitude, there's a lot of people with skills that they disappear,
Mm-hmm. Right. Can you talk a little bit about the Odyssey?
Sure. In my endorsement years, in the 2000s, I was endorsing a lot of companies, Cakewalk, what have you. And I moved from Mac to PC, so I needed a PC that could handle my music. Carl Jacobson, who was still a good friend of mine, who was the vice president of Cakewalk at the time, recommended I go with this company called Rain, RAIN. They make computers. He said, talk to this guy. His name is Kevin. And I started buying computers from him. I bought at least 4 of them at some point, and I was using them. Well, that dude decided to stop being the CEO of this company or whatever, and decided to do music again because he was a jazz bass player.
Wow.
So he hits me up and he's like, "Hey, remember me? I'm Kevin. From Rain." I'm like, "Yeah, of course I remember you, man. I've been to your crib. I picked up some computers." He's like, "Cool. I'm doing a project. It's like electronica, and I really would like scratching on it. What would it take for you to be on it?" I'm like, "Well, just send me the tracks. Let's play it." I listened to him. I did scratching on one of the joints, and I'm like, I said, from a producer standpoint, I don't think it needs all of them on each project. But yes, if you want me to do them, I'll take your money. but I'm telling you, I don't think they need it. So after we did it, he was like, "Yo, this is dope." And he goes, "Well, what would you change?" I'm like, I don't know if you want to get into that conversation. I'm like, but I would do this, that, this. He goes, "Do you have any beats?" I'm like, "Sure." So I sent him some stuff, and he was like, "Yo, can I write to it?" I'm like, "Cool." And then like a couple of weeks later, he was like, "Yo, what do you think about making a group together?" I'm like, "Sure." And he named it the Odyssey. I sent him a song, which ended up being Cold Blooded, and I actually wrote lyrics for it and everything, but I didn't send him the lyrics. I just sent him the beat. He came back, and the lyrics were like this close to what I wrote without him hearing it. And I'm like, yo,
Wow.
this is, we were meant to do this record together. So we just started emailing stuff back and forth. I was living upstate New York at the time, near Albany. And he would record at his crib, email me stuff. And then occasionally he would drive up. Occasionally I'd drive down. And then that's how we got the Odyssey started. You know, and now it's been morphed into something different. We're finally gonna release that album years later. We released singles, but we're gonna release it at the beginning of the year. It was gonna be called You Must Be Just Don't Know Who I Is,
Okay.
which is an inside joke. But it's a long story. But I changed it to due to KJ. KJ has went on a journey, a self-discovery journey, and KJ is now a they, them,
Okay.
and he changed their name. So because of that, this album is going to be called Was/Them.
Okay.
Like they them, because that's who we were when we did the record.
Right. Right.
And KJ has changed his individual name as well to one that reflects his or their non-binary orientation. And I'm happy for KJ. So, but the record is still coming out as is, and hopefully people will dig it. KJ's solo stuff will be more electronica based,
Okay.
which I'll still have a hand in. We'll still have an Odyssey, but it'll be a little different than this first album.
Right. Right. Now, shout out to KJ because he at one time I was doing a feature, where I would play like either new songs or stuff like to feature it. I mean, and he sent me this must have been like the first single that you guys did together because you had like a little.
We had a video too. You're talking about it's possibly it might have been Incantation.
Yeah, I know there was a video that went along with it, and he sent that to me. And he did a drop and all that. So shout out to him. He's a really cool dude.
Well, KJ's name now is Kylie Rilo. So Kylie is doing their thing, and much respect to Kylie. And I'm looking forward to new material from them. In the meantime, there will be new Odyssey stuff as well.
Nice.
Can you catch us up on what Johnny Juice is currently working on?
I am doing another Son of Berserk album. I actually started the Son of Berserk album right after we did the first one together in 2010, but it got held up for a bunch of reasons. One of the problems, well, there was a bunch of problems, but that's inconsequential now. Jawel from Son of Berserk passed away on the 20th of December last year. So it's literally yesterday a year. And it broke all of our hearts because Jawel was a great dude and he was a very good friend of mine. So I reached out at the funeral last year to the rest of the cats. I'm like, yo, listen, we got this album, wasn't released. Some of the stuff needs to be updated and fixed. The music is fine. It was lyric and content wise. I didn't feel it was as strong as the first one. But Jawel stuff was perfect. So I'm like, we could just let this stuff sit and nothing happened to it, or we can release it and give Jawel a proper symbol. They all agreed, so this album will be finished. In the meantime, I got the acapellas to You Know How to Reach Us by the Kings of Prussia, and I remade it for 2023, and it's called the Johnny Juice Can't Find a Payphone Mix. And that I put out. And they got all the original members excited. They don't even talk to each other anymore. And they all reached out to me and like, yo, what's up? So I'm like, well, I wanted to do Armed and Dangerous over, but the vocals were so horrible quality that the acapellas wouldn't work. So they were like, let's redo them from scratch. I'm like, okay, so now I'm doing a Kings of Prussia album.
Nice.
I'm helping Charlie Brown with his current album he's doing with my man Eric Romero, who was a member of a group called the Cracker Jacks. They were part of
Lakeview.
Yeah. Part of the Leaders Posse. Eric also was on Spontaneous and on Sound of the Zekas. He with his boys with Brittle and Cool Whip. So Eric he's a dope producer. He's doing Brown's new album. I'm scratching on it, and then me and Brown are also working on a Johnny Juice produced record form of material that we started a long time ago, never released, but we're updating everything. I spoke to him yesterday about it. I'm
Wow.
working with Milo in the Dance, Busta's actual first cousin,
Right.
who was one of my best friends. We're working on some futuristic dancehall stuff. I'm doing a Johnny Juice album. I'm doing two Johnny Juice albums. One is DJ based with some of my favorite DJs and some of my influences. I got people like Jazzy J on it. I got Jazzy Jeff on it. I got Rob Swift on it. I got people like that on it.
So
But it's going to be very progressive. So it's not going to just be over to scratching. You're going to actually have to listen hard to try to figure out what's scratching or what's actual real live.
right.
That's how it's going to be. And then I'm doing the Johnny Juice album. That's going to be 5 genres, and I'm doing vocals on it and everything. Because unbeknownst to many people, I've written a lot of lyrics for a lot of people I work with. A lot of them. Some that would surprise you, but I'm gonna keep a little secret.
See,
So
you're part of that problem we were talking about.
I'm keeping it like that
I'm
because,
joking.
well, no, I hear you, but there's a reason. There's a reason why I won't say that, and a couple of them are the people that I've written for. They also write, and they're brilliant.
Yeah.
And the second somebody figures out that somebody wrote that for them, that now they're gonna question all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
It's those Facebook groups, man. Those super purists.
But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, the thing is, you know what? My job as a producer is that at the end of the day, that album is done.
Yeah, of
It
course.
doesn't matter that I wrote this. I can figure that out paperwork wise later, especially if I'm in control of it, which I am. So that's good.
Right.
But you're gonna hear me rhyming. You're gonna hear me singing. Yeah, I can sing, and I play multiple instruments. So I'm pretty much playing and doing everything on the record. It's like a Prince thing.
Okay.
And it's not gonna be some corny thing. Was like, look at this guy's trying to believe me. When you hear it, you're gonna be like, what?
Right.
I had no idea. I'm like, good. You shouldn't.
Dope. Before we go, just do me one favor. We briefly touched on TBB. If you could just give me a quick little history as far as TBB, because a lot of crews came out of there that are still relevant and probably got a little bit more shine in the public or whatever. But give me a little brief history on TBB and their importance to hip hop and dance and everything.
Right. TBB started as a graffiti group by Cash and Shark. Cash and Shark created the crew. They brought in Batch, who was writing BAT at the time, BAT. But there wasn't enough letters, so they added the CH and it became Batch.
Okay.
Batch Batch didn't even create TBB. It was created before. That was in 74. In 75, a member of the crew named TT Rock hit the floor, busting his ass, trying to do a move. And everybody else jumped on the floor to make fun of him and started working around on the floor. And that became the start of the Flow Rock. Batch created the 3-step, which is the move where it takes 3 steps to go around in a circle, as opposed to the 6-step, which I believe JoJo created. Okay. And TBB became a rocking crew in 75. And a lot of the members went on to introduce different parts of the dance, like Batch's younger brother, Abby, who's now currently the president. He brought in Russian kicks and helicopters to the dance. You had cats like Trace 2, rest in peace, who did the pretzel freeze or the W freeze. Crazy Legs is known for that. That was created by Trace 2. You had guys like Rubber Band and Bomb 5 and all of these dudes that would go on to become members of Zulu Kings and other crews. And TBB continued to innovate and become bigger and bigger until eventually, and this is the unfortunate aspect of that time frame, a lot of these cats were also involved in not so great activities. And Batch decided to break the crew up because there was some heat on them by the cops. So in 1979, he breaks the crew up at St. James Park. Some members continued being TVB, like Bond 2 and those dudes, so they didn't break up anything, but Batch broke up the crew from his perspective. And two of the members, Jimmy Lee and Jimmy D, asked for a blessing to create their own crew. That crew became the Rocksteady crew.
Right.
And a lot of TVB members went along with them, including people like Bomb 5, Rubber Band and those dudes.
Okay.
So TVB was very influential in the earliest stages of floor rocking and breaking due to that. And along the way, other crews popped up like Star Child LaRock and the CC Crew and Rockwell Association and whatever. And they all played a great role as well. But TVB was around 75 as a rocking crew. And I randomly spoke to Spy from the CC Crew. He was known as the man of 1,000 moves. He was locked up for a while, a long time. He just got out about maybe 5 months ago. I was been speaking to him lately.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's not doing too well health wise, but he's in good spirits. And but now that a lot of these cats have been locked up for a long time are getting out, they get to tell the real story that's been told by other people that have been kind of fudging the lines a little bit, mainly because it helps put them in a better light.
Right.
But we got Spies gonna start telling the story. Batch was also in jail for a very long time.
Right,
He got about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I believe. Might even be longer at this point. But
Yeah.
we actually had a big TVB letter writing campaign to get him out.
Oh, okay.
Right. So we had our members around the world write letters to his parole board, and that helped him get out.
Okay.
And he got 33 chapters around the world, over 300 members. And Batch came out, created Fahrenheit 75 division, but Abby was the one that brought TVB back in '98. He went and asked Batch if it was okay to start the crew again, and Batch said, "Fine, I'm not going to start this crew again." Batch didn't know he was going to get out of jail.
Right.
So obviously, he did, and it helped Batch change his life. Like I said, Spy was away for a while. Jimmy Lee, original president of Rocksteady, is still in jail.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought one of them. I thought he was just recently out. No.
Oh, Spy, but he wasn't Rocksteady. Jimmy Lee is still in jail. Jimmy D, the other founding member, went to the Navy. He went to the Navy. I think he retired from the Navy. He's still around. But
Okay,
Jimmy
so maybe because I saw Leg say that he was going to be at one of the last events that he just had recently. So it might have been.
Oh yeah, Jimmy D. Jimmy D's been around. He was at one of the last Rocksteady anniversaries in New York.
Yeah.
But Jimmy Lee is in jail forever.
He's still locked up. Okay.
So yeah. Batch saw him when they were locked up together, but I spoke to Spy and said he never ran into Jimmy Lee when they were locked up. But
and your position with TVB is?
I'm the global vice president.
Okay.
So I'm under Abby, who runs the whole thing. And Abby was an original member of Batch's younger brother.
Okay. So,
and we do more community organizational functions. We do coat drives, we do food drives. We work with the kids in the community as a way of giving back after some of those earlier years when TVB was stick up kids and doing things that that we probably aren't too proud of, but that was part of the environment in the Bronx in the '70s. So now we want to give back to the community. We're doing all we can to mentor the next generation of youth and teach them the true culture from our perspective, and that goes from dance to art to DJing to MCing to activism and being involved in things that affect you and things around you, because that's really important.
Gotcha. Dope. Yeah. Oh no. Also, personal question: when you were with Zulu, what chapter were you in?
That's a good question. I don't remember. Whatever chapter Tony Tone from Cold Crush Brothers was in.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not sure which that was.
You know what the funny thing is? Chosen chapter wanted me to be down.
Okay.
And I never got down with them because I always consider myself outside of that. I used to roll with Yoda and his people. So that was my main squad.
Rest in peace. He passed away.
He passed away a few years ago, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember us being somewhere and everybody had beads on, and Tony Tone didn't have his beads on. They were like, "You Zulu?" He goes, "Yeah." They asked him the same thing, "What chapter?" And he goes, "Ain't no chapter." And they said, "Where's your beads?" He goes, "My beads are on the inside."
Oh, yeah. I get
So,
it. I get it.
so I mean, yeah. At one point, I don't even remember what chapter it was, but
I get it. I
it's,
was just curious if it was chosen because I know I know. Shout
I
out
used
to
to
Asa.
right,
Uh,
right. I used to roll with Chosen a lot,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I
Okay.
wasn't officially with their chapter.
Gotcha.
It
Okay.
was actually a chapter on Long Island, but we had to report them, man, because these dudes were running around flashing guns and videos and all types of things that were just
Okay.
giving Zulu a real bad name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was early on though, right?
No, this was actually maybe well, not early on, but it was about maybe 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Somebody brought it to my attention. I'm like, wait a minute, who are these guys? I never even heard of them.
Uh,
And so, I mean, after a while, I was running with the foundation, so I wasn't really concerned with the chapter
mm-hmm.
uh, in that respect, you know. And then when I got down with the PE thing, it became bigger than that. So, you know, while I respect everybody's everybody's affiliation, even with my boy on the West Coast.
Africa Islam.
No, not Islam. Guy DJ for the Far Side, Mark Love.
Who you said?
Mark Love.
Oh, Mark Love.
Yeah, you know Mark Love.
Yeah.
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 So
Important.
yeah. Mark Love was trying to get me to be part of his chapter, but he wanted me to move to LA and do all types of stuff. I'm like, nah, I'm not moving to LA, man.
Yeah.
That's definitely not an area I want to be in, man.
Yeah.
Hollywood is not the place for me. So basically, my affiliation was I ran with Red Dragon, Yoda, rest in peace, and those cats, and whatever chapter they represented, that was my chapter.
Yeah, I think they just were.
They just were
Council, yeah.
right.
They just were. Yeah. Dope, man. I mean, what we on? 2 hours, man. I don't.
Yeah, so I just realized I looked up. I'm like, damn, that's long.
It is. But we
Nobody
don't
want to hear me talk for 2 hours, man.
listen. That's not we do, and I'm sure our viewers would like to also because it's not every day that you get a chance to speak to somebody like yourself that has so much knowledge and so much history with them. So we have to take advantage of that while we can. You know what I mean?
I mean, listen, man. At the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is how people feel, right? So as long as we're doing things that make people feel good, and that's what it's about. When you hear the opening of Eric B. and Rakim was, Eric B. is president, clap your hands and what are you doing? And you know that beat's about to drop in a second. Yo, see, you smiling already. You know what I mean?
Oh, that we like to call it that true hip hop. I mean, we say true hip hop feeling, because it's like something you can't really explain. You have to just feel it.
But when you hear the beginning of brothers and sisters, you already know what's going to happen, right? So that feeling to try to replicate that, not to replicate it, but to try to continuously deliver that so that people have that feeling, whether it's like doing a 1990 or some kind of wild b-boy move, and I'm going, oh my God, or dropping that beat or whatever. That's what it's about. So I don't care if you've been doing this for 2 days or 2 decades. If you've been doing, so like Rakim said, it ain't where you from, it's where you at. It's not how long you've been doing it. It's not, what crew you were down with or if the next person that, could co-sign you. It's about show me what you got. And that's what it's about. Show me what you got. And jazz musicians don't stop playing when they get older. They get better, so I don't buy the excuse from some of the cats that have been around for a while talk about, well, I used to, man. First of all, I don't play an instrument. I don't just play records. This is who I am. And until my arthritis gets so bad that I can't do it physically, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Right. Where can the people keep up with you to know what Johnny Juice is doing, what he got coming up next? Your Instagram, Facebook, where you at these
days? You go to my Instagram, it's at DJ Johnny Juice. It's DJ JOHNNY Juice. Twitter, it's just Johnny Juice. On Facebook, my artist page is DJ Johnny Juice. Well, actually, it's Johnny Juice. I'm sorry. So it's DJ Johnny Juice for Instagram, Johnny Juice for Facebook, and Johnny Juice for Twitter. I'm working with a rock band called My World. We're playing at the NAMM show in January. There may be some touring for Public Enemy next year.
Ooh, nice. Nice.
But I say maybe because there's not set in stone, but there may be. And if there is, maybe Johnny Juice might be on that stage with them. So we'll see. Again, there'll be some shows popping up with Brown when he's ready to drop the album. I just did a couple of songs for DMC's new album. It's mainly a rock album. There's people like Sammy Hagar and Joan Jett, Pat Benatar, like those kind of people on it.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
so it's gonna be a really dope 2024. New Odyssey stuff, obviously, and TBB is gonna be doing a lot more in the coming year. I did an interview with Brian Gumble for Real Sports for Brian Gumble. That should be coming out sometime next year about breaking in the Olympics. And we're doing there's a TBB documentary coming out.
Nice. That's
so
appreciate you.
Once again, on behalf of myself and the journalist Sincere, we like to appreciate you, sir, for all of your contribution, past, present, everything you got coming out in the future. We thank you very much. You've played a big role in a lot of our lives by providing us with some dope feelings, like you said. Man, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Continue doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate you guys for wanting to listen to an old dude talk for a couple hours.
No doubt. Pleasure was all ours.
Yes, sir. Thank you once again, man.